Salutations, lords and ladies of the kingdom of YouTube, and welcome to the Fantasy Vault Radio. I am your most illustrious host, Stephen, and I'm glad to have you all along for the ride as we embark on the journey before us, into a world of high intrigue, ancient magic, and looming darkness, all born from the imagination of yours truly. This is an original fantasy tale, set in a realm inspired by the elegance and grit of the Napoleonic era of our own history, where noble houses plot, forgotten gods stir beneath the waves, and the flame of empire flickers on the edge of ruin. So now follow along with me as we delve into the mystical and dangerous realm of Caledonya. The flame had crowned its chosen, but not all bowed before it. In the gilded halls of the grand cathedral, beneath stone angels and watchful saints, a priest took the throne of kings. Yet in the shadows behind the altar, a different claim stirred, not forged in fire, but grown in silence and blood. And the realm, like a candle's wick, began to split. The bells of the grand ember cathedral tolled, their deep voices echoing through the soaring vaults as golden banners bearing the dragon of House Caledonya unfurled from on high. Torchlight danced along the gilded flame sigils etched into every pillar and arch, casting the entire hall in a flickering, sacred glow. From the shadowed balconies above, nobles whispered behind gloved hands, their voices like the rustle of silk on steel. At the center of it all, before the altar of the flame eternal, Cardinal Varen knelt. He did not tremble, robed in white and crimson, his dark sepia hair tied in place with red silk as he bowed. He accepted the sacred oil pressed to his brow by the hand of the Archmagister. There was no emperor's crown for this ceremony, only a circlet of aged bronze, wrought in the shape of rising fire, placed upon his head with solemn reverence. The Archmagister's voice rang clear through the incense-hung air. By the will of the college, by the grace of the flame eternal, and in the absence of sovereign blood, we name you Holy Regent of all Caledonia, keeper of the infernal crown, shield of the realm, and protector of mankind. A breath passed through the cathedral. Varen lifted his gaze, his gold hazel eyes scanning the grand hall. "Let the flame judge me worthy," he said, the words quiet but firm. The Vermilion Knights, personal guardsmen of the Archmagister and his church, stood to attention. They were a vision of fire and steel, sacred protectors of the College of Cardinals and sworn wardens of the divine flame. Their uniforms were cut in the style of striking soldiery, long crimson coats with high collars and gold thread trim, dyed the deep burning red of sanctified vermilion. But where common soldiers bore cloth alone, these men wore their faith in steel. Broad pauldrons of polished steel gleamed on their shoulders, etched with the rising flame sigil of the church. Over their chests, engraved breastplates shone beneath the folds of their coats, both ceremonial and functional. Steel greaves wrapped their shins, strapped tight over black leather boots that clacked like judgment on marble floors. Each knight bore a long flintlock musket, burnished and engraved, its bayonet fixed like the tooth of the dragon itself. At their hips hung curved basket-hilted sabers, not the brutish cleavers of infantry, but elegant, razor-honed blades for the defense of sacred ground and swift executions alike. Their faces were obscured beneath blood-red kerchiefs, tied bandit-style across the mouth and nose, hiding all but the eyes. Atop their heads sat sharp, tricorn hats, each stitched with a silver flame on the left fold, and beneath the brim their eyes were ever watchful, cold and disciplined. They stood in silence beneath the cathedral arches and palace vaults, not mere guards, but a symbol, a warning that the church is a power unto itself. And so it was done. A priest now ruled an empire, and already the firelight danced on the hidden blades, as cloaks shifted and eyes turned cold beneath the masks of reverence. Moonlight poured through the veiled windows of the Empress's solar, silvering the black and violet drapes that hung like mourning shrouds from the walls. The chamber was cool and quiet, a sanctum of velvet shadows and sharp intent. Empress Octavia stood near the hearth, dressed in an elegant black gown, her posture composed, and one hand resting lightly on the curve of her belly. Across from her stood two noble envoys, one cloaked in the finery of House Blackmere shawl and a well-groomed powdered wig, the other sporting the navy blue and silver colors of his heraldry, marked by the silver boar's head pin of House Thorncroft on his leather tricorn. Each one sharp-eyed and cautious, weighing every word before it was spoken. Knight Protector Longhurst lingered at her side, silent but taut, like a blade still in its scabbard. "The Church has given him a crown of bronze," Octavia said, her voice low and cold, "but I carry the true heir in my blood." The envoy from Blackmere Shawl inclined his head with wary deference. "The child is not yet born, Empress, and until then the flame's will stands." At that, the Knight Protector's jaw tightened, his eyes darkening. "Then the flame must be persuaded," he said, each word a quiet threat. A moment passed, the fire crackled, and the wind moaned softly against the stone walls. Octavia's fingers moved to rest fully over her womb, her gaze distant, almost tender. "This child is flame-born too," she murmured. "They just don't see it yet." Outside, the city of Aurelian slept beneath a velvet sky. But within these walls, the game had already begun. The envoy from the verdant marches spoke. "The House of Thorncroft are no fair weather friends. Long has the boar stood side by side with the dragon. We will not forsake each other now. You ought to decide, sir, where the Gilded Coast's interests truly lie." House Blackmere Shawl's envoy felt their gaze upon him then. The Empress, the Knight Protector, and the other envoy. A cold sweat bubbling up on his rear end. His voice was hoarse as he spoke, almost struggling to get the words to leave his throat. "So, you intend treason, then?" he said, as he stared meekly at the Knight Protector. Empress Octavia answered, instead her tone oozing with conviction. "Not treason, my lord, but loyalty." Knight Protector Longhurst addressed them all in a low but firm tone. "Not all crowns are won through battle and gallantry. Some are won in whispers, over wine, and taken from the shadows." The cloisters of the Grand Cathedral lay hushed beneath the weight of night, their white columns bathed in soft torchlight and the lingering scent of incense from the coronation feast. The revelry had faded to murmurs in distant halls, leaving the gardens and vaulted walkways still and solemn beneath the moon. Lord Varon walked alone, his new mantle heavy on his shoulders, both in fabric and meaning. The bronze circlet of flame still rested on his brow, its weight unfamiliar. He needed air, silence, and solitude. But someone waited. Beneath the arch of a cloister, cloaked in simple robes and shadow, stood Brother Amon Vexley. Varon paused, alarmed at first. Then, despite everything, the ceremony, the crown, the burden, he smiled. They embraced like brothers, long parted, their silence saying more than any word could. "You've come far," Varon said softly. "So have you, Josiah, or should I say Holy Regent?" Amon replied, his voice rasped by the fasting and visions. "But not all paths should be taken." Varon's smile faded, and an air of seriousness washing over him. "Not tonight, old friend. I've had enough omens and oil for a dozen lifetimes." But Amon didn't let him pass. His grip tightened on Varon's arm, and his voice lowered. "The tide stirs. The signs return. Storm clouds gather in the north." Varon turned, frowning. "You sound like a prophet." "No," Amon said, his eyes dark with something older than fear. "I speak like a witness." He reached into his sleeve and produced a scroll, sealed with red wax and marked with a vigil Varon hadn't seen since his boyhood studies, an ancient rune long outlawed by the college, the evil mark of the dredge. A chill prickled beneath Varon's collar. Amon pressed the scroll into his hand. "You've stepped into fire, Varon. but something colder than fire is rising. It begins at sea, just as it did before. It was then that Varen's countenance changed. Out of fear or anxiety, Amon couldn't tell, but swiftly, the newly crowned lord grasped the hooded man by his shoulders and forced him into the shadow of the cloister against the wall. "What have you brought me, Amon? Whispers of ghouls and fishmen? Can you not see the den of serpents I've entered? You come to me with outlawed scrolls, speaking of wives' tales, to keep children in line. Nothing more," Varen said as he released the young man, perturbed but regretful of his actions. Then, without another word, Amon huffed as he turned and disappeared into the cloister's shadow, leaving Varen alone beneath the flickering torches, scroll in hand, doubt in heart. Across the breadth of Caledonia, as the bells of Aurelian faded to memory, word of the new regent rippled like smoke through the halls of power. In the verdant weald to the west, banners were summoned and steel was sharpened. Old oaths rekindled as Hymir Hall readied its forces, blades drawn in quiet loyalty to Empress Octavia and the child she carried. To the north, at Dawnbreak Citadel, the hearths were kept low and the doors closed tight. By candlelight, Lord Dawnhurst and his vassals debated neutrality, or something more radical, reform, whispered like heresy between sips of wine. In the south, on the flat steppes of the Marcher Plains, horns echoed across the land as Lord Caldervane's heralds rode out. Levies called in the name of defense, though none had yet named an enemy. And on the sun-baked sands of Port Shawl, the halls of the Auroch Spire, where the sea speaks in secrets and the Blackmere Shawls craft their schemes, a single courier ship slipped from the harbor under moonless skies, its sails bare, its course unspoken. The Empire had crowned a cleric. The game had changed, and the great houses, each in their own way, began to answer. An empire cannot wear two crowns, and in Aurelian, two flames now burned, one on the altar, and one in the Empress's heart. In the days to come, the two flames shall dance, but only one will remain lit. And so, dear listeners, our tale pauses, if only for now. The world of Caledonia stirs with secrets yet uncovered, and the flame of empire still burns. Faint, but defiant. If you've enjoyed this journey into intrigue and imagination, don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe for more. I thank you for lending me your ears and your time. Until next we meet, may your lanterns stay lit, your loyalties unbroken, and your dreams ever daring. Farewell from the Fantasy Vault Radio.